there's this weird phenomenon that I think has just always been around and will probably always keep on going. And it's always been one of my top like pet peeve things about human nature, which seems to be like this incredibly self-satisfied hatred of the youth and like kind of like for as obsessed as like we are with the youth and how the youth like drive our culture, there's also this weird like very normal like it's like almost like you should be having this attitude of like, but also like they're dumb and they're stupid and they really don't have anything worthy to say and they're like confused about who they are and that they're just like whatever, forget about them. And this has always seemed like one of the worst takes to have. Like if you have this take, like I don't think me and you have anything in common philosophically. Okay, that's extreme. Fine. I love extreme language. Fine. We have some things in common philosophically, but like if you have this take, I don't know what to do with you. Like I feel like the wave that we just got hit with all culturally was TikTok, right? At this point, TikTok is a phenomenon. It's a household name. A really good chunk of older people, and I mean older, like from you're out of your teens to the grave, are going to have heard of TikTok. Some are going to use it. Some are going to create content, right? But TikTok still went through the same progression that this, like, I hate the youth and their stupid thing always goes through, which is like you hear the word TikTok and you don't know what it is. And unless you're like a social media person, you probably also don't care. You're like, TikTok, whatever, fuck that. I'm busy. I don't want more in my life. Like, okay. And then you hear that like all the teens are into it. Like the teens don't care about Instagram or Facebook anymore. The teens care about TikTok. And most people's natural reaction is just to like kind of hate TikTok and start talking about how it's not relevant or they don't need that anyway, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, oh, lo and behold, like 2 years later, you're watching primarily TikToks and nothing else. This isn't like the trajectory for everybody, but it certainly was for my parents. Like my parents now proudly report back to me that because I kept on telling them like, download TikTok, you're going to like it, that they now, instead of watching TV because they're burnt out from the pandemic, they just sit and watch TikTok for like an hour before bed. And, I'm not immune from this with TikTok. Like, even I was like, okay, whatever, like I had a friend tell me to get it like probably a year before I did. And then when I did get it and enjoy it, I like didn't give props to that friend. I was like silently was like, okay, he was right. Like, this is cool. My thesis with the TikTok example is like, the youth find this thing that is very popular and kind of novel in its own ways. It gets popular with them, and then the olds learn about it, and they're skeptical at first. They take their time shitting on the youth, but then a lot of them eventually become adopters of it, right? And even the olds that don't go onto TikTok are still watching a bunch of TikTok content, whatever media they do consume, right? So it's like you're liking TikTok one way or another. And this is an example that I don't really care too much about, like a new social media platform. But the one that really grinds my gears and makes me so upset is like anything with like where society is going or anything political. Because it seems to me that unlike like new platforms that like, yeah, sure, other young people got involved with other platforms that like fizzled out. Young people, I'm not talking about young people right now, but they're included. I'm talking about young people forever are like the ones with good ideas about where to steer society, right? Like the olds want it the way for them. And like, we don't want society like how it was hundreds of years ago and thousands of years ago. We want society to change and progress and get better for more people. I know, not everyone, but it's the royal we of the good people on earth. We want things to get better. And there are a lot of people, a lot of olds who, and again, old is anything that's not a teenager. There are a lot of olds who do want like social progress and change, but they still will get caught up in this like, but the teenagers, the young people, they're idiots and stupid. I'm a smart one. And I don't think that like instinctually it makes a ton of sense to be like looking to teenagers for like where our society goes. I get where the impulse is to be like, no, like you aren't competent about a lot of things. And you also have a lot of stupid opinions about a lot of things that I can like objectively see are stupid. So I'm just going to ignore like your social progress ideas. But I'd assume at some point, like at least for me, when I was trying to figure out my own political and social progress ideas and philosophies, like, and this was early on, I was like, how do you do that? You hear a bunch of different arguments, or like, which one is right? Like, I don't know. And I just noticed a pattern that was like throughout history, when have the young people been wrong? When have a mass groups of young people in a culture been like, I want this change to happen. We're getting this wrong. And it was just absolutely ass backwards, a terrible thing to do, didn't have an improvement, took us in the opposite direction. Like, they've got a pretty good track record. And then to me, that feels like a cheat code into politics, right? Because they're just like, okay, as I get old and my mind becomes more firm and secure in itself and less willing to think of new ideas and have new criticisms put at it, I can just see what the young people are doing and like be like, they're probably right. I can assume with a good degree of certainty that they are right. And the example that I kind of want to walk through and get your feedback on is hippies. Because like, sure, if you watch this video and you want to pick apart like, hey, I can name dumb and wrong things that young people have done, I'm going to be like, yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that 14-year-olds don't make mistakes and errors. But what I'm talking about is a huge group of people, a movement that's like takes over a huge part of the culture. And I'm talking about the thesis, the big bullet points, the breakthrough ideas that youth culture has. I just don't think that those are wrong. So like, what were the hippies' big bullet points? Let's say like Vietnam War, bad. Doing hallucinogens, good. Bell-bottom pants, also good. Feminism, let's start working on it. And sexual stigma sucks and we can do with less of it. And so if you check in decades later after the hippies, who were super counterculture, had all of their big theses that you said, hey guys, like, you really got to start working on these things that all the crew cuts like exploded at and like couldn't have derided more. They're pretty standard and accepted by like everyone, you know? So that's another kind of asterisk I'll throw in there, is that yes, you do kind of need the passage of time to distill like the main ideas to figure out what's happening. It is way harder in the present moment because of course there are probably like little subsections going on that had terrible ideas, like did get crushed. But at the same time, you can still be in our present society and like obviously be like, one of the main things that youth today are doing is like, yeah, trans people exist and are real and deserve rights. Like, I don't think it's a bad call in the future to be like, I think we're going to do that and I think we're going to be a lot better for it. And just on my hippie example, yes, you can cherry pick a bunch of things the hippies were bad and wrong about. Obviously, you can go into individual bad actors and like horrific crimes, but can you take anything that was broadly accepted as one of their main ideas, one of their main bullet points that like if hippies had like 3 things they could tell you to change, like can you take one of those and really say that it was wrong or was backwards or was bad for society or that we shouldn't have done it? Like, I don't think so. Like in aggregate, the youth gets things right. Another example is just like the internet, you know? I'm 34. I'm of the age where like I sat down both my parents like with a little presentation about why we needed dial-up in the house. And I'm like, we gotta get it. This is important. It has to happen. Please provide it. And my parents were like, no, that's stupid. It's like a video game. The same parents who now scroll TikTok every night for at least an hour before they go to bed. And since that's an example where so many olds got it so wrong, I think it really exemplifies like exactly how prevalent this is. Is prevalent a word? I'm gonna assume it is. Anyway, and I don't think it's that hard to figure out why. It's just that all the reasons why I don't think really hold up to scrutiny. And let's pull it all the way back to the thing driving all of us at all times, the fear of death. Because we all have the fear of death, but we also know that we're going to die. And so one of the best things that we can do, instead of just fading into oblivion, is make sure that in our minds and hearts that we really knew that we came from the best generation ever and that it's all going downhill from after this and that we really got to experience peak humanity. So if we have to die, at least that's our consolation prize, is that everyone after us and everyone before us had a worse life than us. And for a more sympathetic lens on that problem, I think that I'm not a parent, but I can really see how hard it would be to respect and like realize that you're wrong and that like this little creature is right when you've seen them be wrong about everything, right? Like you've seen them try to walk into the street and get hit when they're little. Like you've seen them just like say the dumbest shit. You've seen them not understand gravity. You've seen them shit their pants a million times. And it's almost like adults then have this credit score in their mind of like, well, this teenager's credit is really bad because most of the things I've seen it do are like fuck ups that I knew better on. So like, here's another idea that it has. So I'm going to assume it has an 80% chance of being wrong, just like everything else. It's probably just another stupid teen fuck up. But I think that that's such a crucial error because like everyone starts out as a baby. There's no way to avoid that process. And there's no way to like learn about gravity and not going into the street until you've had someone teach you. So then it's like weird because it's like, okay, yes, adult, you're superior on all of these like practical life things. Like you win, you've been around longer. But does that mean that the youth have nothing to add? They have no value. And I think that's so unwise, again, just because of history. Like, we're constantly, like, I don't know, I kind of think of humanity as like this organism that's like shedding its skin constantly, right? And like regrowing a little bit. And you're like, we aren't a static being. Like we need to shed ourselves and get into new people that have new ideas and progress, even with bare bones, barely existing like historical knowledge. So it's just baffling to me that these adults can't wrap their minds around the fact that like this new generation is gonna do the same thing that all the rest of the generations have. And like, as they were like making those fuck ups, they were also observing and like now they have notes. And now that they're eloquent and old enough to like put those notes into thought, they're going to say them to us and give us suggestions and also try to make those changes in their own lives. And so what would I say about all of the teens that have used their new generation and freedom to like dive into hateful internet groups? That's a good counterpoint to what I'm saying, because just like you're like, okay, the hippie 5 bullet points, sure, but you could point to like these distinct groups of youthful teens and their whole thing is about like women shouldn't have rights. Atheism is the same thing as hating women. I never got that one. Why online is atheism the same thing as hating women? I'm atheist as fuck. I couldn't be more atheist. But I also, it's not linked to hating women. Like, it's just such a popular add-on. It's like a little free gift with your order. You're like, and would you like a side of hating women? We know that makes it more appealing for you. So yeah, I guess I don't have a great comeback to like the manosphere and how young it is. But to me, that's like more of a repackaging of these traditional ideas that we've had. And like, they're almost more of like, okay, we're just going to have the patriarchy and like white supremacy like repackaged in like a nice TikTok bow. But yes, I will admit that the internet has let many groups splinter and split, and that some of the new ones are purely toxic and bad. A random addendum I have to this whole thing is that I moved to LA about 10 years ago. And this is something that I think LA does really right, even if it comes to it from like backwards reasons. Because in LA, it's not unfair to say that there are a lot of clout, popularity, obsessed people who really view themselves as tastemakers. And, you know, they are. I mean, the amount of media that comes out of Los Angeles that affects the entire world, like this is a huge artistic hub. And also all the profits are tied into, again, teenagers and youth, because that's who's got free time and money to burn, and that's whose brain is still being molded into the point where they're going to be unshakable fans of whatever they see in 20 years from now, and you're going to be able to rip out more money. So getting them now is real important. So understanding how they work right now is also real important. But because of that, because LA is so youth obsessed, and because everyone's trying to like conceal their own age, they get a lot of these things right. They kind of are constantly checking in with the youth culture. They're constantly like, In LA, it would be like scary to say that you didn't know what TikTok was. It'd be like, oh, like, I guess you're not keeping up with trends, huh? Or when I go visit other friends that aren't in the entertainment industry, they like beam with pride on how they like don't know how to use social media, you know? Because of this weird kind of vapid obsession with youth, it has a funny result of like, and also people that come to LA are already pretty progressive, but I think it even like doubles down where you kind of keep current. You don't stop with your generation because you're like, my generation, it's the generation of today, ha ha ha, you know? And then because of that, you genuinely know what's going on. You have pretty good progressive values. Obviously, asterisks, 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 trend lines more than other places. Yes, there's evil everywhere, including LA. So yeah, if you're watching with disdain for what I've said, I would be very curious to hear what your thoughts are. I'll read your comments and respond. And if you're watching with smug satisfaction because you are a current teen, just hold on to that and don't forget that and don't lose it as you, I'm sorry to say, will age out of the teenage group. And yes, there will come a time where people are laughing at Gen Zers because like, oh my God, it's so cute that they're like so old. They actually got a letter in their generational name and they like are on two-dimensional screens. Oh my God, I'm in VR. So like, that will happen to you. As popular as TikTok is now, it will never hold a flame to the first 3 years of Facebook when you were like, I can see photos of people. So keep that alive, check in with the youth. And I honestly think it's just a less hateful way to go about life. And then you get this reward of like being relevant and not being wrong in like the rearview mirror of history. All right, that's my rant.